So hello everybody, welcome back to my video, and today is day 87 of the plan. Now, I made a tough decision, and I'm gonna make my videos as not made for kids, so that like comments can be on, and stuff like that, because I was actually looking at it some more, and I didn't understand it at first, I guess, very well, because you can't search up channels on YouTube Kids, and so having it set as made for kids wasn't really helping it spread to any more people. And so now like there's gonna be comments on and all that. And I have to monitor through all that stuff. But yeah, I think it'll actually let me say stuff in chat now. So I'm not sure that's gonna pop up on your screen, but it might just said hi. But try one more time. Say test. But anyways, chapter 9 through 12 of First Chronicles is what I'm gonna be reading today, and so it's looking like it's gonna be slightly less boring than like the few previous days. Those are some tough chapters to get through because it was just a lot of numbers. But anyways, after the exile, all of Israel was registered in the genealogies that were in the book of Kings of Israel. But Judah was exiled to Babylon because their unfaithfulness, first to live in their towns on their own property again, the Israelites, priests, Levites, and temple servants. These people from the descendants of Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh settled in Jerusalem. Uthah, son of Amihud, son of Armi, son of Imri, son of Benaiah, descendant of Chazri, son of Judah, from Shalonites, Isaiah, the firstborn of his sons, descendants of Zerai, Jewel, and their relatives, 690 in all. The Benjamites, Salu, son of Shulam, son of Hadaviah, son of Hassaniah, Ibniah, son of Jeroham, Elah, son of Aziz, son of Meshulam, son of Shephatai, son of Reel, son of Imnijah, and relatives according to their family records, 956 in all. All these men are heads of their ancestral families. The priest, Shadiah, Jehoiarib, Jachin, Azariah of Hilkiah, son of Mejulam, son of Sadok, son of Miriath, son of Yehitim, the chief official of God's temple, Adai, son of Jeraham, son of Pashur, son of Malchijah, Mazai, son of Adil, son of Jazerah, son of Meshulam, son of Meshulemeth, son of Immer, and the relatives are heads of their ancestral families, 1,716 all. They were capable men employed in the ministry of God's temple. The Levites, Shimei, son of Asub, son of Erikaim, son of Heshbon, the Merivite, Baraka, Heshbon, Galilee, Metania, son of Mika, son of Sigri, son of Asaph, Obadiah, son of Shemai, son of Galal, son of Jeduthun, and Berechia, son of Azah, son of Elkanah, who lived in the settlements of Netophathites, the gatekeepers Shalom, Akab, Talmud, a human, and their relatives. Shalom was their chief. He was previously stationed in the King's Gate on the east side. These are the gatekeepers from the camp of the Levites. Shalom, son of Kor, son of Ebisaph, son of Korah, and relatives from his father's family. The Korahites were assigned to guard the thresholds of the tent. Their ancestors had been assigned to the Lord's camp as the guardians of the entrance. In the earlier times, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, had been their leader, and the Lord was with them. Zechariah, son of Mia, was the gatekeeper at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Total number of those chosen the gatekeepers at the threshold was 212. They were registered by genealogy of their settlements. David and Samuel had appointed them to their trusted position, so they were assigned to the sign as guards at the gates in the Lord's temple, which had been tent temple. The gatekeepers were on the four sides: east, west, north, and south. The relatives came from settlements, fixed times, say be with the 7 days, but the four chiefs be with them. The four chief gatekeepers, the Levites, entrusted with the rooms and the treasures of God's temple. They spent the night in the vicinity of God's temple to guard duty. They were in charge of opening it in the morning. Some of them were in charge of utensils and worship. They could count them when they brought them in and when they took them out. Others were put in charge of furnishings and utensils of the sanctuary, as well as fine flour, wine, oil, incense, and spices. Some of the priest's sons mixed the spices. The Levite called Mattithan, the firstborn of Shalom. The Korathite was entrusted with baking the bread. Some of the Kohathites' relatives are responsible for preparing the rows of the bread of the presence every Sabbath. The singers, heads of Levite families, stayed in temple chambers and were exempt from other tasks because they were on duty day and night. These are the heads of the Levite families, the chiefs according to their family records. They lived in Jerusalem. That's weird. My phone just stopped. My phone just turned off mid-recording. And it was really weird to watch. Okay, I'm starting back that recording on my phone. I'm really hoping they don't require me to go back to this. So, Saul's family. Jeel fathered Gibeon, lived in Gibeon. His last name was Makah. Abdon was his firstborn son. And Zerakish, Balnir, Dab, Gedor, Ahio, Zechariah, and Mikloth. Mikloth fathered Shemin. They also lived opposite their relatives in Jerusalem with their own other relatives. Ner fathered Kish, Kish fathered Saul, and Saul fathered Jonathan, Melishia, Abdiah, and Eshbal. Jonathan's sons were Meribah, and Meribah's father Micah. Micah's sons Python, Melech, Terah, and Ahaz. Ahaz fathered Jerath. Jerah fathered Amalek, Azmapheth, and Zimri. Zimri fathered Moaz. Moza fathered Biniah, and his son Ephraim, his son Eliza, and his son Aziel. Aziel had 6 sons, and these were their names: Azir, Kim, Bashir, Ishmael, Sirah, Obadiah, and Hanan. These were Aziel's sons. Chapter 10, the second chapter. The death of Saul and his sons. The Philistines fought against Israel, and Israel's men fled from them. Many were killed on Mount Gobah. The Philistines pursued Saul and his sons and killed his sons Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. When the battle intensified against Saul, an archer spotted him, severely wounded him. Then Saul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and run me through it with it, or these uncircumcised men will come to torture me." His armor bearer would not do it because he was terrified, and Saul took his sword and fell on it. When the armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he also fell on his own sword and died. Saul and his 3 sons died. His whole house died together. While all the men of Israel in the valley saw the army had fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they abandoned their cities and fled. So the Philistines came and settled in them. The next day, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, they found Saul and his sons dead on Mount Gilboa. They stripped Saul and cut off his head, took his armor, sent messengers throughout the land of Philistines to spread the good news to their idols and their people. Then they put his armor in the temple of their gods and hung his skull in the temple of Dagon. And all Jabesh Gilead heard that everything the Philistines had done to Saul, all their brave men sent out to retrieve the body of Saul and the bodies of their sons and brought them to Jabesh. They laid their bones under the oak in Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Saul died for his unfaithfulness to the Lord because he did not keep the Lord's word. He even consulted a medium for guidance, but he did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. Chapter 11, halfway through. David's anointing as king. All of Israel came together. David at Hebron and said, Here we are, your own flesh and blood. Even previously, when Saul was king, you were leading Israel out to battle and to bring us back. The Lord your God also said to you, You will shepherd my people Israel. You will be ruler over my people Israel. Saul and the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron. David made a covenant with them at Hebron in the Lord's presence, and they all anointed David king over Israel, in keeping with the Lord's word through Samuel. David's capture of Jerusalem. David and all of Israel marched to Jerusalem. The Jebusites who inhabited the land were there. Inhabitants said to David, You'll never get in here yet. David did capture strongholds, that is the city of David. David said, Whoever is the first to kill a Jebusite will become chief commander. Joab, son of Uzziah, went up first, so he became chief. Then David took up residence in the stronghold, therefore it was called the city of David. He built a city all the way around, from its supporting terraces to the surrounding parks, and Joab restored the rest of the city. David's settlements grew more powerful, and the Lord of armies was with them. Exploits from David's warriors. The following were the chiefs of David's warriors who, together, all of Israel strongly supported him in his reign to make him king, according to the Lord's word about Israel. The list of David's warriors: Jashoabim, son of Hachmoni, the chief of the 30. He wielded a spear against 300 and killed them at one time. After him, Eleazar, son of Dodo, the Ahohite, was one of the 3 warriors. He was with David, past Divan, where the Philistines had gathered there for battle. There was a portion of field full of barley, where the troops had fled from the Philistines. Eleazar and David took a stand in the middle of the field and defended it. They killed the Philistines, and the Lord gave them a great victory. 3 of the 30 chief men went down to David to the rock at the cave of Adullam, while the Philistines' army was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and a Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David was extremely thirsty and said, "If only someone would bring me water to drink from the well at the city gate of Bethlehem." So 3 broke through the Philistine camp and drew the water from the well at the gate of Bethlehem. They brought it back to David, but he refused to drink. Instead, he poured it to the Lord, saying, "I would never do such a thing in the presence of my God. How can I drink the blood of these men who risked their lives? For they brought it at the risk of their lives, so he would not drink it." Such were the exploits of the 3 warriors. Abishai, Joab's brother, was the leader of the 3. He raised a spear against 300 men and killed them, gaining a reputation among the 3. He was more honored than the 3 became their commander, even though he did not become one of the 3. Benai, son of Jehoiada, was son of Raman from Kabzeel, a man of exploits. Benai killed 2 sons of Ariel of Moab and went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. He also killed an Egyptian who was 7 like a weaver's beam. Benai went down to him with a club, snatched a spear out of the Egyptian's hand, and killed him with his own spear. These were the exploits of Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, who had a reputation among the 3 warriors. He was the most honored of the 30, but did not become one of the 3. David put him in charge of his bodyguard. The best soldiers were Joab's brother Sheal, Elena, son of Doda of Bethlehem, Shimei the Harite, Pelez the Puanite, Ira the Ekashite, the Tayat, Abisur the Abithite, Mari the Nethite, Heli Benai the Nephite, Ithites, Arabia from Gibi, a Benjamites, Benai the Pirathonite, Hirai from Wadis of Gash, Abil Arbathite, Asmat Beth, the Bahar Umite, Eleh the Shalbanite, the sons of Hashbon Giznite, Jonathan, son of Shagi the Harite, Ahimam, son of Sakar the Harite, Leifel, son of Ir, Heber the Merchurite, Edri the Hellenite, Israel the Carmelite, Neri, son of Abiza, Joel, the brother of Nathan, Midpar, son of Hagri, Selek the Ammonite, Naharite the Beerothite, Gumber for Joab, son of Zerai, Ira the Ithite, Jared the Ithite, Uzai the Ethite, Zabad, son of Adina, son of Juzah the Reubenite, chief of the Reubenites, and 30 with him. Hanan, son of Makah, Josaphat the Mithnite, Uzi the Ashtarothite, Shema and Shiel, the sons of Hotham the Arite, Jediel, the sons of Shimri and his brother Joel the Tizite, Eliel the Mahavite, Jebai and Joshavai, the sons of Elnim, Ithma the Moabite, Eliel, Obed, and Jaziel the Moabite. Mesobeit. Chapter 12, the last and final chapter. David's first supporters. The following the men who came for David, Ziklag still banned from the presence of Saul's son Kish. They were among the warriors who helped him in battle. They were archers, slinging stones, shoot arrows from a bow. They were Saul, Ahiezer, son of Shema the Gilite. Then there was his brother Joash, Jaziel, and Pelet, sons Asmaveth. They were called the Jehudah. Anathothite, Ishmael the Gibeonite, a warrior among the 30 and a leader over the 30, Jeremiah, Jehazel, Johanan, Josabad the Gerathite, Eluzi, Jeremiah, Bleah, Shemariah, Shephathai the Gerathite, Elican, Ishite, Israel, Joezer, and Joshua, the Korahites, and Joel and Zedaiah, sons of Jeroboam from Gedor. Some of the Gadites defected to David at his stronghold in the desert. They were valiant warriors, trained for battle, expert with shield and spear. Their face direct faces the lions, and their swift as gazelles on the mountains. Ezer was chief of Obadiah second, Eliab's third, Mishmana fourth, Jeremiah fifth, Attai sixth, Eliel seventh, Jonathan eighth, Elizabeth ninth, Jeremiah 10th, and Matbana 11th. These guys are army commanders. The least of them were matched for 100, and the greatest of them for 1,000. These are the men who crossed Jordan at the first month, and it was overflowing all its banks and put to fly all those ways and valleys to the east and west. Well, other Benjamites and the men from Judah also went to David at the stronghold. David went out to meet them and said to them, "If you have come in peace to help me, my heart will be united to you. But if you come to betray me to my enemies, even though my hands have done no wrong, may the God of our ancestors look on it and judge." And the Spirit enveloped Amaziah chief 30 and said, "We are yours, David. We are with you, son of Jesse. Peace to you, peace to him who helps you. For your God helps you." So David received them, made them leaders of the troops. Some of the Manassites defected David when he went to the Philistines to fight against Saul. However, they did not help the Philistines because the Philistine rulers sent David away after a discussion. They said, "It'll be our heads if he defects his master Saul." So when David was sent to Ziklag, some of the men of Manasseh defected him. Edna, Jozabad, Jedidiah, Mishael, Jozabad, Elihu, and Zilethai, chiefs of 1,000 of Manasseh. They helped David against the raiders, for they are all valiant warriors and commanders of the troops who came to David at Hebron to turn Saul's kingdom over to him, according to wars, or as it follows: from Jedidiah 6,800 armed troops, bearing shields and spears; from the Shemonites 7,100 valiant warriors ready for war; from the Levites 4,600, in addition to Joiada, leader of the house of Aaron, with 3,700 men, and Stock, a valiant young warrior, 22 commanders from his father's family. From the Benjamites, relative of Saul, 3,000. Up to the time, the majority of the Benjamites maintained their allegiance to House of Saul. From the Ephraim's 20,800 valiant warriors who were famous men in their ancestral families. From the tribe of Manasseh, 18,000 designated by name to come to make David king. From the Israelites who understood the times and knew that Israel should do, 200 chiefs of all their relatives and their commanders. From Zebulun, 50,000 who could serve in the army, trained for battle with all kinds of weapons of war, with one purpose: to help David. From Naphtali, 1,000 commanders, accompanied by 37,000 men with shield and spear. From the Danites, 28,600 trained for battle. From Asher, 40,000 who could serve in the army, trained for battle. From across Jordan, from the Reubenites, Gadites, half tribe of Manasseh, 120,000 men, equipped with all the military weapons of war. All these warriors lined up for battle formation, came to Hebron, wholeheartedly determined to make David king over all Israel. The rest of Israel was also one mind to make David king. They spent 3 days there eating and drinking with David. Their relatives had provided them. In addition, their neighbors as far away as Issachar, Zebulun, and Naphtali came to and brought food on donkeys, camels, mules, and oxen, abundant provisions of flour, big cakes, raisins, wine, oil, herds, and flocks. Indeed, there was joy in Israel. So that is all for today. Oh, and the chat's working. It's pretty cool. And so, it starts out in chapter 9, talking about all stuff that happened after the exile, and how Israel kind of came back. And then Saul's family and all those people. And then after it kind of went more into the story a little bit about how previously, a couple books ago, I can't remember what it was, but how Saul eventually died in war from fault. He didn't want to get killed or tortured by other people, so he kind of killed himself by falling on his own sword. And then I recaps that part, and then talks about David being anointed as king, and how David eventually captured Jerusalem, the warriors and the exploits of them, how like they wanted to get to the water, but he would refuse to take it because they risked their lives to get it for him. And I'm not really sure how I'd react to that. If I risk my life to get someone water and then they refuse to drink it because I risked my life for it, I'm not sure if I'd be happy or sad because either way they still risked their life for it. But that's what happened. And so then talks about David's first supporters, and then how David had soldiers in heaven, and then they kept on coming, and there was just so many people supporting, and then it was ending for today. So I hope you've had an amazing day so far. Have a great rest of your day. Remember, God loves you, and oh, my phone fell down. Goodbye.